Straight up with the Rev. A good evening to all of you viewers out there. And today we are picking it up with the episode that is going into the second part of geography. Now, in the previous episode, I demonstrated precisely how geography through livestock and human disease, hostile environments, and being landlocked can actually play a very serious role in hampering the progress of most African countries. When this is combined with poor governance and weak institutions, the situation is greatly exacerbated. Now, this episode, we are continuing the second part of the show and will demonstrate precisely how natural resources, weak institutions, and poor governance, when combined, can lead to dreadful poverty for the majority of citizens and untold wealth for a minuscule minority. On this show, I will not only demonstrate the dangers of this, but will contrast two great African nations in order to showcase precisely what I am speaking about. Join me in just a moment. Right, so now you may never realize it, but this is perhaps one of the greatest factors that may either work to increase or decrease the equitable distribution of wealth in a nation. I'm speaking about natural resources. I have shown that there are two types of resources, natural and human. I have shown how human resources get affected by geographical factors such as alluded in the previous episode. There is no argument that they play a significant role in aggravating conditions that manifest poverty. Now, natural resources also play a very big role. They are what are known as intensifiers, and this then means that if the country has strong institutions, then the resources work to bring about great prosperity and wealth for its citizens. A great example of such in Africa is the Republic of South Africa. Now, at the time of this recording, meaning now, they have a relatively strong series of institutions and systems, and these were even stronger before. These then ensured that the environment guaranteed equitable returns for entrepreneurial exploits. This meant guaranteed growth and development for all, and the results were then channeled into all the various social sectors. You don't need to be an economist to see the massive development that is there in South Africa and their general services compared to other sub-Saharan African countries, especially the poor ones. If, on the other hand, the country has weak institutions, see the contrast, then this can turn that resource from a blessing to a curse. We can cite examples from the 10 poorest countries and see that this straight away, can cause that. And two examples are obviously Liberia and Congo DR. Now, Liberia has diamonds, and we all know the famous film Blood Diamonds that showed how these were pivotal in perpetuating a civil war that was mainly about control of this resource. But beyond that, of course, you have to factor in also the historical case of perpetuated injustice through decades of systematic disenfranchisement of a large portion of the population. It becomes clear why this country then imploded and went through decades of terrible civil war and abject poverty as a direct consequence. Another great nation in Africa that is a collection of the most valuable minerals under one nation, and yet they are the third poorest nation on the planet as of 2019 figures as compiled by the World Bank, is Congo DR. So we are now going to delve in what is the saddest case on record in Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo. So we're going to begin with the case of rubber. Now, historically, the nation was exploited by King Leopold for rubber. Ironically, Liberia also underwent decades of exploitation for rubber too, though not by King Leopold, of course, as they fell under another multinational conglomerate working directly with the wealth plantation owners in that country. The king turned this entire nation into one large farming estate. I mean, that's scary. He used fear and extortion, which included systematic chopping off of limbs as a means of instilling fear, and thus had all able-bodied men and women work with, his farms as slaves. The pictures are there, you can see them. Now, the economic exploits of King Leopold can be seen in Belgium. Most of the wealth of that European nation was siphoned out of the Congo without any care for the welfare of its citizens. The death toll from these exploits, is numbered at just, north of 20 million Congolese. Can you believe that? 20 million people. These lives were lost over a 50-year period. Now, there was independence, there was military rule, which then came about when Congo became independent on the 30th of June, 1960. A great man called Patrice Lumumba became its first elected prime minister and Joseph Kasavubu its president. Unfortunately, this only lasted 1 month before there was a military coup and he was placed under house arrest. He was captured trying to escape to Stanleyville, now Kisangani, and was tortured badly and finally shot by leaders of the Katanga province, his sworn enemies. A combination of white mercenaries, specifically Belgian, Rhodesian, and South Africans, helped dispose of his body by decapitation and then literally dissolving it in acid. This exacerbated the Congo crisis, which lasted until 1965 when Mobutu Sese Seko finally took over and became its absolute ruler. This saw Congo degenerate into the worst run state in the world, with its wealth being systematically plundered to zero. Now, when it comes to minerals, Congo is estimated to have 24 trillion, correct that, strike it off, 24 trillion US dollar, which is the equivalent to the combined gross domestic product, or GDP, of Europe and the US combined. Can you believe that? This is all untapped deposits of minerals, which include the world's largest reserves of coltan, 70%, and significant quantities of the world's cobalt. The primary resources extracted in the DRC include cobalt, diamonds, gold, copper, and oil. Coltan is the key mineral used in nanotechnology. If you own a smartphone right now, if you're watching this through a smartphone, tablet, laptop, video, flat screen TVs, game consoles, and most electronic gadgets, then your gadget is made efficient by this very mineral called coltan. This makes it the new gold, as it is critical in ICT. It is, however, the latest addition to the conflict minerals like diamonds in Liberia. As one can imagine, the Congo has strong institutions. If they had strong institutions and regulatory framework backed by legitimate government and good governance, there is no doubt it would be the richest nation in fact, for me, I think in the whole world as well. But you have to understand that there's something else. Now, the humanitarian crisis that then occurred in Congo further worsened the situation. In September 2010, the government banned mining in the east of the country, attempting to crack down on illegal organizations and corruption. During periods of violence, resources have been looted from the original collectors by both Congolese and foreign soldiers, as well as civilians, although were extracted by soldiers, locals, organized by military commanders. Much of the time, Rwanda and Ugandan commanders, and by foreign nationals. The actual miners who mine this mineral are paid very paltry wages of 20 cents a day. Guys, that's like 2.15 a day for the work they do. Not only this, they have to leave their homes to work in these open pits. There is very little regulation, and so anyone can go work there. The areas are controlled by gun-toting rebels who work with local warlords who have the money to buy from the miners. They then supply the middlemen, who then export to Europe by plane. Some of the largest air cargo planes leave these areas on a regular basis, and sometimes as often as several times a week. The humanitarian toll is appalling, to say the least. Just between 1994 and 2010, this region has seen over 6 million, you heard me right, 6 million Congolese killed. Okay? 6 million. Now, this is the number of Jews that were exterminated by the Nazi government, and the whole world stood by and, made memorials to honor the dead and ensure it never happened again. Yet, we have 6 million Africans die this way, and do you hear this in the mainstream news? Do you hear about it on our news networks? Do you even see it on social media? Even now, we see more people being killed each day in this area. But you never hear anything at all. Check the news right now. I challenge you. Now, what are the results of all this? Listen to this. 1, the indoctrination and turning of little children into child soldiers. 2, the promotion of prostitution as a means of living for women that can no longer subsist from the land. 3, the systematic rape, yes, systematic rape of women as a weapon of war to decimate populations and spread fear and shame. Please watch a harrowing but powerful documentary called City of Joy and the award-winning works of Dr. Dennis Mukwege Mukengere, Christine Schuller de Schriver, and E. Vensler so that you see firsthand this terrible plight. 4, the mass displacement of people running away from war. 5, the influx of refugees into neighboring nations. 6, the creation of factions fighting for a stake in mineral revenue. And 7, the ensuing hunger that is a result of mass displacement and inability for people to farm the land. Now, as a conclusion, you can witness for yourself and see that the humanitarian crisis is beyond comprehension. The suffering of the Congolese brings tears to my eyes because this is all human caused. If greed were eliminated, if people genuinely wanted the betterment of humanity and their nationals, this would not happen. What is even more appalling is that this situation serves rich nations immensely. As it was in the days of slavery when great wealth was built off blood, sweat, and tears of poor African slaves displaced from their continent, so it is with this situation that allows for unbridled exploitation of the chaotic mess that exists in the Congo DR. You see, for greedy corporations that are looking for unregulated operations, Congo is their heaven. For they can remove as much as they want, mess up the environment as much as they want, and then bribe anyone who tries to ask questions. Where these 3 can't work, they then sponsor, and I mean this is painful, they sponsor a civil war so that when the humanitarian crisis ensues, they remain with the carte blanche, white card, free to do as they please with no repercussions for it. This, my friends, is what the Congo is like. That's what's going on in the Congo. This is what is happening to many countries like the Congo, where their natural resources have found weak institutions and bad governance. When next you hear about the poverty of Africa, before you take on a high and mighty stance and wonder why many cannot get their act right, take another look at the Congo. See their predicament, and then perhaps you may understand and have empathy. Indeed, geography does play a pivotal role in bringing about the manifestation of poverty, for you can have a nation with potential GDP greater than the most developed nations on the planet, but yet be called the 3rd poorest nation on earth. In the next program, I am now going to delve into culture and begin to demonstrate from that angle how that is also contributing to the poverty in Africa. Have a great day.